Hello, everyone. This is Craig with Redship Companies. Thank you for joining today's event with Inspira Technologies, which trades on the NASDAQ under the ticker IINN. With us today, we have Joe Hyon, President and co-founder of Inspira. We will begin with a brief presentation in a moment, and then we will answer your questions. Submit your question at any time by using the Q&A tool at the bottom of the Zoom window. Before we begin, please allow me to read the Safe Harbor Statement. This call may contain forward-looking statements within the meaning of the Private Securities Litigation Reform Act of 1995. All statements pertaining to future financial and/or operating results, along with other statements about the future expectations, beliefs, goals, plans, or prospects expressed by management, constitute forward-looking statements. Any statements that are not historical fact should also be considered forward-looking statements. Of course, forward-looking statements involve risks and uncertainties. With that said, I now turn the webinar over to Joe. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Craig, and it's really a pleasure to be here today with all the investors, potential investors, and of course, thank you very much, Redship, for hosting the event. So as I'm both the president and co-founder of Inspira Technologies, the company was established in 2018. And in this presentation, of course, I will be taking into consideration that we have both existing long-term investors and, of course, maybe some new folks that have joined today. So we'll have a bit of a mix to ensure that we'll on par for everybody. So just a little bit, just look at the high-level reports that the company's had in 2024. And if you look at our, if you go onto our website, Inspira Technologies, you'll see that under press releases, news events, we have a very decent amount of news flow. We tend to do everything we can to provide the public with as much updates on what we're doing, what we're trying to achieve. And I think, with what the public's looking at the moment, I just want to confirm and just touch base on a couple of things. So we've recently, in May 28th, we had the Inspira ART device receive FDA clearance. So it was a great achievement for the company, having the first device that can oxygenate blood, remove CO2. It's a cardiopulmonary bypass support system, which means it supports heart-lung failure or in open surgery in those kinds of settings. So that's really a unique achievement. And we're very happy and proud that it received the 510(k) FDA clearance. We've also told the market that we received the purchase order from our distributor, Glomed, in the US. And of course, we said that, and we have reported that we plan to ship those 5 units this year. So that's something that you guys, everybody can keep an eye on. And of course, we confirmed and revisited and reconfirmed that statement in October 25th, saying that we're still planning to deploy the Inspira ART 100 in 2024. We've also been discussing, amongst many things, advancements around the HYLA blood sensor, about there being a unique configuration going under certain clinical studies. It's ahead of FDA submission for 2025. So the company, again, we're working very hard to plan and just continue to get updated with our press releases and for any updates. So, a little bit about Inspira. We set up the company to identify or create a solution for patients that end up on mechanical ventilation. Mechanical ventilation is, in my opinion, a dreadful type of treatment. Respect, it saved a lot of people's lives, but unfortunately, there are still 20 million people every year that end up on the ventilator. And there's a very, very high mortality rate. It can reach about 50%. In this terrible condition, patients often suffer respiratory failure, and they deteriorate so quickly that the doctors really have no choice but to place them into a coma, to intubate them, to shove a tube all the way down their throat, and hope that they can actually support the patient, sustain life, while the doctors are taking care of the underlying medical problem. Now, unfortunately, it's not as simple as that. Many, many patients will suffer long-term complications, death, or life-threatening conditions. They often develop a type of pneumonia brought on by the bacteria that builds up in the tubing, lung injury, lung infections, delirium. And so it doesn't really end that well for many people. Now, even the news, the research has come to terms to a certain level about how problematic this type of treatment is. Washington Post sees it as being a dark side, that there's a dark side to ventilators. CNN They realize that life support is really a type of death support. And yes, whether it's COVID or post-COVID, many doctors are moving away from mechanical ventilators because they know that this is not often the best solution for the patient, but also in many cases, they don't really have much more to offer. But on the other side, Forbes has identified a new technology, a direct blood oxygenation technology. And believe it or not, it's something being developed by Inspira Technologies, by us. So we're very proud of the article that covers us, but it shows how the world is identifying that there is a need for a solution and a new type of treatment as opposed to the current standard, which is mechanical ventilation. Now, what we plan to do and what we're working on is what we call oxygen delivery straight into the blood, a type of blood oxygen enrichment. So as you can see here in the picture, in the illustration, we're talking about a device that has a tube with a cannula connected to the patient. And what we're doing, we're actually extracting blood from the patient, blood that is low in oxygen. We are now enriching this blood with high levels of oxygen, removing the carbon dioxide, and circulating this blood back to the patient in order to there's declining saturation levels, their oxygen levels, while they're awake and while they're breathing. So in a sense, we don't plan to place the patient in a coma. We don't plan to intubate the patient. We plan to enrich their blood with oxygen, support the body, support the brain, provide the organs with all the oxygen that they need, sustain life while the doctors are taking care of the underlying medical problem. Should we succeed on this massive journey, this unbelievable breakthrough technology, we could do two things. We could potentially save millions of lives, shorten the time of treatment. And again, it's a $19 billion mechanical ventilation market, one of the largest markets in the health sector. So I'm just going to share with you a quick video about how the device is intended to work.
Most people take breathing for granted. After all, spontaneous breathing is a natural process that occurs whether we are awake or asleep. But for some people, every breath is a challenge. Over 400 million people suffer from respiratory insufficiency. Every year, nearly 20 million end up on respiratory life support, and millions die. Doctors facing patients with these treatment challenges administer supplemental oxygen using devices such as nasal cannulas. And when supplemental treatment is insufficient, their only option is to induce coma, intubate, and place the patient on mechanical ventilator that is not only expensive and complex to use, but puts the patient at high risk. This further emphasizes the huge gap between basic respiratory care and an intervention that should be used as a treatment of last resort. Inspira's extracorporeal respiratory support system, the Inspira ART 500, bridges this gap, delivering the right level of care. Introducing the Inspira ART 500, the solution designed to boost oxygen saturation levels in minutes. Targeting hyper-personalization care, the Inspira ART 500 seamlessly integrates Inspira AI technology that continuously collects data and learns patient and device parameters in real time to provide physicians with monitoring and predictive analytics in order to alert the need for immediate intervention. The treatment aims to be administered by a trained clinician, eliminating the need for ICU-level care. Let's understand how this breakthrough technology works. Inspira's dual-lumen cannula is inserted into the jugular vein. Blood with low oxygen saturation is continuously drawn through the cannula's intake lumen into the Inspira ART 500. The innovative proprietary Inspira ART 500's pump circulates the blood at an optimal rate of 1,000 cc's per minute while reducing thrombosis and hemolysis. The blood flows to the oxygenator, which oxygenates the blood and removes CO2, with only a minimal drop in blood pressure and low shear force, protecting the red blood cells. The oxygenated blood returns through the lumen to the jugular vein. Even though the Inspira ART 500 treats blood in low volumes, it is expected to raise the patient's oxygen saturation to 95% or higher in minutes. This device brings immediate relief to the patient while being easy to operate without the need for ICU expertise. The Inspira ART 500 sets the new standard in respiratory care, bringing hope to millions.
Thank you very much. Just to go back on what we've just seen, we're talking about a device that is designed to elevate declining oxygen saturation levels without the use of a ventilator. As we can see in the illustration here, the idea here is for the patient to be awake, with no need for coma, no need to wean, in other words, get them off the machine, the process of waking them up and getting them off a mechanical ventilator, no tubes in the throat, and therefore we can potentially do away with all the, or many of the complications associated to mechanical ventilation, lung injury, lung infections. And basically what this device does is it rapidly boosts oxygen saturation levels with minutes. Now just think about it. If we can treat patients while they're awake without all these complications, if we can boost and stabilize their saturation levels in minutes, potentially we are redesigning or reshaping what life support is about, meaning that we could potentially provide this treatment in ICUs, but beyond ICUs, high care units, emergency medical services, rural hospitals. And so this will actually change the scalability and the affordability of life support in relation to what we know today. Now, let's dig deep into the core technologies for a moment. What allows us to do what we're doing and what we're planning to do are two core technologies, and you may have heard a lot about them in the news flow. The one is the Vortex, and the one is the HYLA. And do remember these two very, very important elements. The Vortex is a unique technology that allows us, it's a design, it's a development that we're working on, that allows us to diffuse oxygen into the blood and remove carbon dioxide with minimal contact with foreign materials. Now, if you can do this, you're basically reducing or preventing trauma to the blood. Now, today, if someone tries to oxygenate the blood in any way, they have to basically do it through what's called hollow fiber membranes. It's a technology very much like a filter where you have to circulate the blood through a filtration process. And so basically it's pushed in there with a lot of force. It means that there's potential damage to the blood, both red cells and white cells. And again, there's always the option of clotting. So if we are able to dissolve the blood, oxygen into the blood, we can do away with a lot of the shear force. We've even reported about tests that we've done with the 0 gradient pressure, which is expected to reduce exposure or high levels of hemolysis and again, reduce coagulation and clotting. And so by doing this, it will potentially allow us to expand the use of blood oxygenation on a much wider scope to a larger variety of patients. Now, on the other side, we also have the HYLA. And the HYLA is this unique clip-on blood sensor. It's basically using state-of-the-art algorithms developed by Inspira together with a light source in order to take the reflected data from the light. And we can take that information with the algorithms and convert them into blood parameters as if you took an actual blood test. Now, because we're not physically touching the blood, it means that we can always scan the blood and therefore provide continuous and real-time readings of blood parameters. And again, without physical contact. And this could, in a sense, reduce the need for intermittent actual blood cells. And in many cases, they don't even occur because there's no staff or the patient suffering from anemia. And again, by having so much information about what's happening within the blood and to being able to oxygenate the patient's blood with reduced risk, we can, in a sense, have a very good understanding of what's happening to the patient, how devices are being operated, and we can identify we could potentially identify any sudden changes in the patient's condition, fatigue in disposables, or any other elements that could be of alarm, and then again also support physicians in decisions that they would potentially need to make. Now, we have, and we believe we have already a type of an initial proven track record. Because as I mentioned earlier, we've already designed, built, and received regulatory approval for the Inspira ART 100, our first device that we have submitted and are on pathway to deploy it to the US market. And we've mentioned this in the press releases. This device is a little different to the Inspira ART or ART 500 because it's still using blood oxygenation, but it's using it for a different purpose. It's using it in order to replace a partial or complete heart-lung function. So it's got some of the elements that we've spoken about and many other elements. It's a very unique. It's the first kind of generation of what Inspira knows to do. But of course, this is a very specific market, and we plan to enter the US market with this device. Of course, the holy grail and the reason we set up the companies for the Inspira ART or the ART 500 was expected to create a $19 billion market opportunity with the Vortex and the HYLA technologies. Now, going forward, we believe that the big ticket is the way we build the pathway to disrupt the market with the ART 500, with the Inspira ART. Our goal is to collaborate with leading medical centers, global medical device companies. We plan to take other devices through FDA, whether it's the ART 100, whether it's the HYLA blood sensor, and there could be more going forward. We plan to take these sub-technologies or these capabilities and basically deploy them in high-stake medical environments. It's very, very useful for the company to do two things. From one side, to expose our brand and our capabilities to the market, to be involved and deployed in as many hospitals as possible. And again, there's obviously a lot of data there of interest. But think about it. If we can go in with the Inspira R100, which is something closer to what the market knows, and then next year submit the HYLA blood sensor to the FDA and get that approved, and then have that device compatible with the Inspira ART100, basically allowing the ART100 to both provide cardiopulmonary bypass support, but also monitor certain blood parameters. We are setting the scene ahead of the arrival or the future arrival of the Inspira ART, which is expected to grow the market dramatically, increase dramatically the way in which the device can be used on a much larger patient population, focusing on acute respiratory failure patients, which are a very high percentage of patients in the ICU today. So in a sense, if you look at Inspira, we're a company in Israel. We've already proven within a couple of years that we're able to bring the first device to the market. We have a second device where we're going to be showing clinical results in a couple of months. We plan to submit it to the FDA already in 2025. And we're pushing forward towards developing a massive $19 billion mechanical ventilation. Inspira plans to develop and supply direct blood oxygenation enrichment on a high scale to hopefully turn this into the standard of care and hopefully have the Inspira ART being a new alternative to providing acute respiratory support to patients as an alternative or as a replacement to mechanical ventilation going forward. So thank you very much, and I'm open to any questions you may have.
Thank you. Click the Q&A button and type in your question if you wish to reach Joe that way. You may also use the raise hand button. Click that. I'll unmute your line and you can speak to Joe. First off, glad you are all safe. Do you still anticipate HYLA results in Q4 and FDA submission in early 2025? Do you see Inspira partnering with a large medical device company in the future?
Okay, so it's a great question. I purposely showed the first slide. This is what we've told the market. We haven't updated the market on anything different. So that's all I can say about that. We are very, very excited about the progress around the HYLA. So that's what I can tell you for now. And sorry, the second part of the question?
Do you see Inspira partnering with a large medical device company in the future?
Everything's possible. If you look at Inspira looking at the past, we had entered a strategic OEM agreement with Terumo, one of the larger players in the space. We did provide a press release about 2 months ago saying that the Inspira was tested with another product belonging to a global or large medical device company. If you look at the company and you look at the news flow, we always have a very good mix of what we're doing. We're always very focused on technology and on business. So there's always a good mix of, patents approvals. We've also told the market that there are more patents that need to be approved. There's always work around distribution agreements, around deployments, around collaborations, whether it's hospitals or medical device companies or some type of a collaboration that was reported.
Mohammed, please unmute your line. Mohammed.
Yes, sir. So the only question again I had was again back to like as investors. I mean, I'm a personal basically I'm not like working for a company. I'm self-investing on this company. The only concern I had was when are we planning to have like any kind of order or where we get some results, marketing and everything. We have the product. We assume we have the market. When are we planning to have any like a decent contract or anything? That's all I needed to hear. That's all. Thank you.
All right. So again, as a public company, I am pretty limited to what I can say. We have told the market that we received an initial order for 25 units, 5 with the shipping date. Those 5 will be shipped this year. There are press releases around the evaluation or collaboration with hospitals. So that's all I can say about that. It is, of course, in the medical world, they do take a little bit of time, but we try to work very, very aggressively to push things along as much as we can. With regard to the HYLA, again, and other elements, we've reported what we've reported, and we always try to be very close or around what we reported. That's the goal. We'll just have to wait and see when we report updates or news.
Several people have written in with this basic theme. I'm going to conflate them for us. How has Inspira taken measures to safeguard the company, its technology, and future should the escalating regional geopolitical situation interfere with corporate operations within Israel?
Okay, so of course, this is a challenging time in history. Obviously, the last year has been very challenging. But let's tell you a little bit what we've done, right? Firstly, there are different levels to it. A lot of our technologies just from a patent point of view, we've submitted to patents. For example, the Vortex has 2 patents. It has 32 novel claims. So we do whatever we can with patent management in general, not relating to the war. Throughout this last year, we've done a lot of things to make sure the company stays funded. Since October 7th, that dreadful day, we financed ourselves in December. We were able this year twice to raise money from high net worth individuals, millionaires, even higher than that. So we've done everything we can to get the company in front of the right people to ensure that we've got funding, and we'll do everything we can to continue to do so. From an operations point of view, the company operates almost the same. At the beginning of the war, there were a few people that maybe were on reserve duty. But most of the companies at work, people come in, we try to operate as usual. And we can do that in a sense because despite what people may see on the news, but we are a very fortunate company to have a great defense system. So despite the fact that we are in a war zone, everyday life is actually pretty normal. You go about doing your business as usual. So the impact of the war isn't very high, it's very minimal. I wouldn't say that it has a very big impact on how we perform or any tasks that we take on ourselves. We still travel, we still go to work, we all come into the office every day. We're working 24/7. If anything, we're only more determined to have the upper hand and show how Israel and its Israeli company comes out of this even stronger than how we went into this on October 7th.
You extract blood from the jugular. Is there a separate tube to send the oxygenated blood back to the jugular?
So it depends on the device. When you're looking at the ART-100, which is a cardiopulmonary bypass, those types of devices will normally have 2 cannulas, one in the jugular, one in the femoral. So one's obviously extracting, the one's pumping it back. Because there you're obviously dealing with much larger quantities of blood, 5 to 8 liters, depending on the size of the body, because you're replacing full heart function. With Inspira ART or the Inspira ART 500, we're only pumping about 1 liter, and we have a unique cannula that we're developing, And so the inlet and the outlet is in the neck, in the jugular vein, and that's a very important thing. Of course, we obviously have to do a lot of things to make sure that it's sufficient, because going through the neck has a lot of advantages, and this is why we went for this, because our cannula, for example, is only about 5 inches in length compared to other cannulas that are used in ECMO and other blood circulating technologies where they could be like 1.5 feet. So ours is only about 5 inches, and it's both an inlet and an outlet. It's a special technology. And basically, why is that so important? Because if the patient's awake, you want to maintain patient movements, mobility. And so being short and being in the neck, you could potentially achieve that capability. And it's part of the concept of being awake and alert and being more mobile as opposed to other treatments that are out there today.
Thanks, Jeff. Are you considering pursuing any regional licensing deals to bring in upfront cash?
Again, it's a great idea. I can only keep to what's public information. We've got it. We're focused. We've spoken about the U.S. market, having a distributor. They've set up a facility. We've spoken about evaluation agreements both in the U.S. One can understand in Israel as well because we have the regulatory approval for there as well. Beyond that, obviously, when the company hits those milestones, the company obviously will report.
Are you getting any interest from rural hospitals? What has the FDA agreed to from a standpoint of administration?
So the ART 100, the Inspira ART is designed for ICUs, and because we believe that it will be a lot safer and have a lot more scalability, we believe it could eventually move outside the ICUs. The cardiopulmonary bypass is obviously used in an operating theater in high-end clinical settings. So that device can't be in a rural area. It has to be probably mainly in large metropolitan hospitals. There are about 300 to 400 hospitals in the US that are able to provide that kind of treatment.
Can you give us a quick breakdown of the regulatory updates we can look forward to in 2025?
So if we look at the press releases, we've spoken about FDA submission of the HYLA. We've spoken about FDA submission of potential disposables that can be used with our devices. And of course, that's obviously very important because once approved, that provides another form of a revenue stream. Again, we cannot tell you when FDA will approve. It depends on the FDA. I can say the ART 100 took roughly about 9 months, 10 months. That could be the time frame. It's a very standard time frame, pretty efficient actually. But we believe that we'll be able to submit both disposables and the HYLA to the FDA in 2025.
Where will you be manufacturing your different devices, and how quickly can the devices be ready to meet orders?
So the devices we've mentioned in the past that we manufacture the devices in a company in Israel for medical devices. Just that you know, I don't know how familiar everybody is with medical device manufacturing, but the largest and global manufacturers for medical device are actually all in Israel. Whether it's PCB, Sanmina, Flextronics, all these companies, the plants that actually are most advanced in medical device manufacturing actually here in Israel. They manufacture devices for all the companies or most of them, Philips, GE, you name it. Of course, there's supply chain that comes from around the world, but they are very, very advanced. They're very, very organized. They're working as usual. And again, these companies have large ramp-up capabilities. It will be great that we'll be able to one day actually challenge those capabilities because they have product lines that make very large amounts of products for certain things. So they don't really have limited capabilities as far as we're concerned.
Can you talk more about the manufacturing process for the ART? Are the parts hard to source?
No, I don't think there's something that's not standard. At the end of the day, when it comes to these devices, you've got machining, you've got electronics. So at the end of the day, there are a lot of large turnkey manufacturers, contract manufacturing. I mentioned a couple of names. They're all very, very advanced in how to manage the supply chain, and they have very, very reliable suppliers. And again, I don't see something that's unique with regard to the manufacturing. On the contrary, I may say, a lot of our products, when we look at the vortex and we look at some parts of the HYLA and the cannula, we have purposely developed new capabilities of developing a technology that are not dependent on complicated manufacturing processes. And the reason you want to do that is because you want to be able to manufacture at a more affordable cost, have a technology that's scalable and stable.
Have you come across any other companies that have similar technology?
So when it comes to cardiopulmonary bypass, there are companies in the space. There are very few. They all belong to large companies, multi-billion-dollar companies in most cases. A lot of companies are interested in having this capability in my opinion, to have this in their arsenal. And the reason being is because during COVID, people realized mechanical ventilators are like terrible. People spoke about it, but no one really saw the information. Doctors never spoke about the results, or even some of them weren't even aware about it, unless they really treat the patients. And so all of a sudden, people started, in 2020, the doctors started trying other technologies like ECMO, cardiopulmonary bypass, other elements, mostly ECMO, which also is a type of blood oxygenation to provide a solution. The problem with ECMO, for example, which is also a technology that oxygenates blood through membranes, is that in many cases, you've got to be like 80% chance of dying in order for them to put you on the machine. And the reason being is that there's such a high chance of damage to the blood, clotting, that you're most likely to suffer a seizure or stroke. And so it's very expensive and they won't put you on it. What Inspira's gone and done is taken blood oxygenation from the core, developed new technologies about blood management, monitoring, oxygenation without going through third-party materials, obviously advanced software, and therefore the goal is to basically remove a lot of the safety issues, and therefore have a product which is very, very effective. The market agrees that blood oxygenation is the right way to go, but to do something which is scalable and can be used for the masses. And this is exactly what we plan to do. So when it comes to the cardiopulmonary bypass, yes, there is some competition. When it comes to the ART100, again, just to be very clear, when it comes to the Inspira ART100, the cardiopulmonary bypass, yes, there is competition. When it comes to the Inspira ART or the ART500, we believe that we're in a league of our own at the moment. That's what we know. We have a very unique technology, the Vortex. We have a very unique blood monitoring capability. I believe that we are pioneering the next generation of blood oxygenation and taking blood enrichment to a totally new level.
Can you envision your technology integrating with more complex systems, such as robotic surgery machines?
So a patient can use or would be able to use our technologies when he's being operated on, right? That could be a sense. So again, robotics is the operating sector. So yes, it could be another piece of hardware and software in the operating room. I don't know if they're directly linked, but they would both be, they'll both be in the operating room, potentially. That could happen.
What is the biggest challenge yet to finishing the ART 500 and becoming a real machine? What is missing?
Well, until you haven't finished development and you haven't got regulatory approval, there's always risk. So when I go through the different processes or the different elements, the Vortex in development, we have already reported to the market that we've reached good results. We were able to get 100% oxygenation. So we are very confident about the core capabilities. Of course, we will continue to work on it because you want to get to scalability capabilities. But we're very, very positive about that. And we know it's mind-boggling because people kind of think like, how are you oxygenating the blood without it going through any membranes or hollow fiber membranes? How are you causing the blood to kind of dissolve into the oxygen to dissolve into the blood? But as I said, we're working very hard on it and we're very positive about it. The HYLA blood sensor, we've already released some results. in December last year, we showed 95% accuracy in relation to the other types of blood tests out there for what was tested. We plan to show in the close future additional results. So I think we're very much there, but the risk is always regulatory. And as a medical device company, it's our responsibility to say that regulatory is always a challenge. You've got to basically collect all the data, show the proof of how effective the system is, or the devices, or the sub-technologies. You've got to supply basically report it to the FDA. And it could be challenging. Some processes are easier, and some of them can be more complicated. And again, so obviously that's always an element. And until you're not on the other side, you don't know. But we do, as again, Inspira's strategy is to develop core technologies. And we're also working on taking part of those core technologies through FDA submissions, because they can be a product in themselves, like the HYLA. But it's also a way to get it out there a lot earlier, to also get more feedback towards bringing it all together, packing it together, and getting the final device through the FDA based on whatever the FDA will decide will be the regulatory pathway. So there are ways to de-risk, but again, we're trying to change the world. We're not trying to do something which is easy. We are trying to take an area of treatment which was like really stuck. Mechanical ventilations had like no innovations for like decades. ECMO CPB has had very little innovations. And we're taking oxygenation. We're going to enrich blood in small volumes, identifying a patient, treating them while they're awake with new technologies, new blood monitoring technologies. And so we plan to revolutionize the market. So yes, it's going to be challenging. Yes, there are risks, but we are very confident. And hopefully, time over time, with the right funding and the right progress, we will hit the mark and potentially have the opportunity to bring a much better treatment to millions that are badly and gravely affected by mechanical ventilators today.
We are fast approaching the top of the hour. Joe, could we wind up with some final thoughts, perhaps the value proposition? Thank you.
Right. So I always recommend to everybody, look at us, have a good read, look in the markets, read our press releases. We try to share as much information. I would say, I'll talk about myself. I like to think big. When I get up in the morning and I come to Inspira, I want to think big. I don't want to solve small problems. I want to solve big problems. So sometimes big problems take more time, less time. There's more technology involved. But we want to really work hard and do something that is significant. And so we are actually, the company is aiming high. The company is aiming to revolutionize and disrupt the mechanical ventilation market, which has many, many medical device companies in that market. No one is a real leader. So we plan to really disrupt it. Alongside it, what are we doing? We are taking the sub-technologies and also introducing other devices like the ART 100, like the HYLA. We're taking these capabilities through the FDA, getting approval into the market, getting the market familiar, hopefully, with our brand, with our capabilities, ahead of what's hoped to be the great massive entrance of the Inspira ART or the ART 500. So you can see that we're working hard to change the world, but we're also looking short term to de-risk so that we can bring this all together, hopefully one day, and disrupt the market. And hopefully this will bring a lot of value to the company and most importantly, to the shareholders who stick in with us on this very, very interesting journey that we have planned ahead. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining, and follow the company and be updated with the news.
Perfect, Joe. And to do that, participants, please call us at 1-800-RED-CHIP. You can also email us at IINN@redchip.com. Also, visit RedChip's investor information page for Inspira Technologies. It's inspirainfo.com. There you can view and download today's investor presentation, as well as the fact sheet, and sign up for news alerts on Inspira. Please be sure to watch Small Stocks, Big Money, RedChip's program featuring exciting small cap companies every Saturday night at 7 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg USA. Join Redship's forthcoming webinars, the Global Music Industry ETF tomorrow, Tuesday, November 12th, ASP Isotopes on Wednesday, November 13th, and Alta Global Group on Thursday, November 14th. All webinars start at 4:15 p.m. U.S. Eastern. Register for those events and for all Redship webinars at redship.com/events, where you can also view an archived version of today's Inspira webinar. Thanks again to our many participants today. And as always, thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much, Craig, and thanks to Redship. Thank you, everybody, for joining.